change the columns, so you want 2 columns, and then the gutter also adjusts to the lighting. I'm not sure if I'll do it correctly, but yeah, so then everything starts to snap to the grid. So that's kind of a basic introduction to how to set up the document grids, but that will help immensely, and everything just really flows from there. So I think that was really helpful information from Donna. So you can see in the books too, like how that starts to work, and then and each project doesn't have to be set up exactly the same. I think a little variety isn't bad, but as long as the structure is cohesive. And then often, like it's nice to start each project maybe with an image or something, like white space is good, don't overcrowd your page. Try to use like really powerful images that will catch you instead of like cluttering information. Clarity is better. And definitely I think people want to see the information, so a really crazy, wacky, fancy portfolio isn't necessarily going to be a good thing. You just want to have really nice, crisp work and images, and everything be really clean, and it shows your thinking too. So I made this portfolio for launch last semester, so there's some mistakes too that I can share, but I was pressed for time when I made this, so I didn't plan for the full bleed, and so you can see like that doesn't look good. So you should definitely want to plan for printing and cropping your full bleed images. And so I did a similar thing where I organized it into like grad school, undergrad, professional, personal, and then I started each section with an image that kind of like gives it some organization, and then I put my resume and my your letter of intent. You put in there, and it just looks like clean box. Yes, I made the box too, and just depends on how you're going to be presenting it to them. But it's going to get like passed around a lot, and you want something sturdy, think about it. But I wouldn't get any fancier than this. Like no metal or crazy things. It's not necessary. Yeah. And yeah. So and then Sarah's gonna talk.
Okay. So I guess next we can talk about cover. I guess Sue talked about it a little bit, and I guess it depends on how you're doing it. And in her case, kind of like the box and the framing of her name sort of becomes a cover. In mine, I used Perfect Binding from blurb.com, and so I don't have sort of like something to put it in, and so the front page kind of acts as that for me. And you just want to make sure you have a nice, clear image that represents you and your work. This is sort of like an opportunity, I guess, for you to show yourself a little bit more broadly. Like it doesn't have to like be like a rendering or anything. It can just be kind of an abstract image that kind of shows something you're interested in. And then printing and publishing. Sue, did you print yours here and then?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if you're doing the Perfect Binding and you're doing it yourself, you can get this special glue.
It's binding glue.
Yeah, just binding glue. And so if you're working on a portfolio and you don't necessarily have time to do like a blurb or a Lulu thing, or you would rather do the binding yourself, then you can plan to print here or Kinko's or whatever, and then use something like this. And you just want to make sure when you do this that you're careful to not, get super messy, because it will show on your pages. And then you can use binding clips, and it will hold. Just let it dry. And then a lot of you have probably all heard of blurb.com and lulu.com. And Blurb is really nice now. So this is probably what you would end up doing is a PDF to book. and they now have a plugin for InDesign that you can download, and you can set up your file directly from InDesign, so you don't have to worry so much about if your lines are all set up and all that kind of stuff. So if you just download that, and then they have a very clear way of explaining it on here to do that. And then, okay, so you can do the perfect binding yourself, or if you go through a website like this, it's going to be perfect binding as well, just a different way.
I think it's definitely, people are favoring perfect binding more and more, and I think spiral binding or any of those things are starting to, I don't know, they almost take away from the whole book, from the look of it. So now there's a lot of ways to do perfect binding yourself. I think it's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I wanted to talk really quickly about creating a web page. Now a lot of places, like I know OMA, they do completely online applications, so you don't even send them a physical portfolio. And so having a really simple website can put your name out there, and then a lot of firms will look at that first before asking you for a physical portfolio. And I made one last summer that I'll show you, and I'm really, really bad like web kind of stuff, but I was still able to make a very like dumb website. And here's a look at, if you just want to write down these two URLs, they're like a really simple guide to making web pages. But the first thing that you have to do is you have to get a domain name. And so that would be like GoDaddy.com. And your domain name is just, like the SaraHieb.com or whatever you want to name your website. You have to reserve that and pay for that. And usually it's like $5 to $10 a year to do that. And so then after you get a domain name, you're going to need a hosting website. And hosting sites, I have a couple listed here. There's HostGator.com and HostMonster.com. And so if you look at those two websites that I put on there, it explains really clearly how to link your domain name to your web host site. And then when you're picking a host site, you want to just make sure that it has WordPress capabilities so that you can use a WordPress template. So if we so when you have a WordPress website, you can use themes to sort of like organize a layout for your website, and you can customize it to however you want. And like for mine, I wanted something super, super simple, and so I used this one called Page Lines, and it just basically has titles up top that you can put different stuff in. And I just wanted to make sure that people can access my portfolio. And so I just have a link to my Blurb portfolio, and we can preview it that way. And it's not that large or anything, but it just gives someone online access to it. And then just like a PDF resume, a little bit about myself, and then contact information. So that's a really simple way to do something. And I know you guys are probably, like a lot of you are probably better with HTML, or you can probably write something yourself. This is a Ethan Furr. Some of you may know him. He graduated last year. He was a sixth year. And his website might be a good thing to look at, metafold.net. And his is probably much more complicated. But he does a nice job of organizing his work, and the graphics are really nice. So that's another source to kind of look at if you're more interested in something more complicated.
Yeah, so that's about it. And so we wanted to know, do you guys have any questions? And also if you guys have any personal experiences with portfolios or tips that you want to share and add to this, that'd be great. Do you guys have any questions?
If you send somebody a PDF of a portfolio, would it be a different kind of document than what you intend for?
It depends. I mean, if it's really clearly, I've seen them translate to both, like be used for both, and if it's clear and, you know, I don't see why not. And so some people will just attach the PDF of their resume to their website and say, like sometimes you don't want to put your whole portfolio on the website, so you'll say like contact me if you want to see the whole thing. But that can be just the PDF version of the one that we it depends, like if it's, it depends if you want to see single page or spread, but yeah. But I think like knowing that like less is more with these, it's always better to just let the work show and not the portfolio itself or any kind of layouts or graphics that you think may be fancy. It's really about the work and trying to get them to understand your work as quickly as possible because you're usually looking through them pretty quickly.
And also, like, I remember in my undergrad, everybody was trying to do like fancy layouts with diagonal lines running through the whole thing. But then eventually you end up redoing your portfolio because you're adding work and you're changing things. So it really is good. I'm glad you mentioned that grid system because that's a way